Hello students, it's Mr. James, and this video is going to help us understand our notes, and it's also going to help us master these two learning targets. And those learning targets are, I can represent a decimal in different forms, and I can determine the place value of any given numbers. I'm going to break it down into two videos. So first we'll hit that first target, which is once again is I can represent decimals in different forms. So let's get started. So we are talking about place value. And before we get into place value, I'm going to talk about some important things we wrote down in our notes. The first thing we wrote down was to the left of the decimal point, those are whole numbers. We also wrote down to the right of the decimal point, those are fractional parts. And we'll go more into details about that later on in the video. We also wrote one more important thing. When we see the decimal, we will say the word and. So that's going to help us know how to pronounce and say the number the correct way. So the first thing we want to do is put these numbers in the correct place value. And I really can just match those up. I know that to the left of the decimal point, that's my ones place. So I'm going to write that 4 in the 1 spot. I'm going to write the 8 in the 10 spot. And then I'm going to go to the right of the decimal point and write my 1 in the 10 spot and my 3 in the 100 spot. So the first thing we really want to know how to do is how do we read these numbers? Well, let's give it a try. We have 84 and we see a decimal, so we'll say and over here we'll read it as 13, and under the 3 is the 100 spot, so this will be 13 hundreds. So when we put this number together, we have 84 and 13 hundreds. Once again, that's 84 and 13 hundreds. The last place value will let me know how I need to read that when we're dealing with decimals. Now, we're going to try it together. So I'm going to write the number down first. And while I'm writing the number down, I want you to go ahead and see if you can say the number correctly. So let's give it a try. We have 18. When we see the decimal, we'll say the word and. We have 4, and under it, it says tenths. So when we put it together, we have 18 and 4 tenths. All right, good job. Let's try another one. Give it a moment for you can give it a try. Now let's do it again together. We have to the left of that decimal point, we have 503. To the right of the decimal point, we have 268, but what does it end in? Thousands. So when we put it all together, we have 503 and 268 thousands. If you got that, give yourself a little clap. And we'll just do one more. I like the last one, because it may be a little challenging, but I'll give it a second and give you a try. All right, let's bring it back and let's try to do it together. Well, to the left, I already have the number 1. So I have 1 and, how do I say this? 1 and, the only number I have over here is 1, but where does it end? In the thousand spot. So together is 1 and 1 thousandths. Once again, that's 1 and 1 thousandths. You wouldn't say 1 and 001 thousandths. The zeros, just leave them out. But remember, wherever that place value, that last place value is, that is how we will end that number. Okay, so now that we had a little practice on how to say the number, let's see how we can represent that number in 3 different ways. So, ways to represent a decimal. We have the standard form, we have the word form, and we also can represent it as a fraction. Remember we said that to the right, our fractional parts? Well, we'll see how we write that in a few. So, standard form is pretty simple. When we're talking about a standard form of the decimal, we only need the decimal and everything behind it. So right here, we have 84 and 1300ths, but if I'm just writing the standard form of the decimal, I only need to put my decimal and 1300ths. Standard form, very simple. You need the decimal and the numbers that fall behind it to the right. Word form, what do you think we're going to write? Well, we just have to spell it out. We're spelling out this standard form, which is just 1300ths. And I know on here, I don't have the place values, but I have them down here just in case you need a reference. When we have 2 numbers behind the decimal spot, it'll end in the hundreds place value. So we have 13. And sorry for my handwriting, but I promise you it says 1300ths. It's important to write the THS on the end when we're in the decimal range. All of them will end in the THS, hundreds. Last thing, as a fraction. How do you think we can write it as a fraction? In a fraction, we have a numerator and a denominator. So let's talk about it. Well, 13, that's going to be my numerator. What do you think should be our denominator? What did it end in? 13 what? Hundreds. So the denominator will be 13 over 100. However we read it is pretty much how we write it. 1300ths, so it's 13 over 100. Now let's try it again with these 2 numbers. The first number we have 0 and 45 hundredths. I know it's going to stop at hundreds because it's 2 numbers behind my decimal point. And 2 numbers behind my decimal point is the hundredths place value. So when I write it in standard form, what do I need? Well, I need my decimal and the numbers to the right of that, which is 45. When I write it in word form, I just need to spell that out, 45 hundredths. Once again, sorry for my spelling and the way that I write. I apologize. And as a fraction, remember, what is my fraction? What's my numerator going to be? It's going to be that number, 45. How did I end that when I was saying the number? 0 and 45 hundredths. So it's just 45 over 100. And we'll do the same for the next number. But how do we read that? It's 0 and 6 tenths because it's only 1 number behind of the decimal spot. So I need my decimal for the standard form. Over here, I'm writing 6 tenths because there's only 1 number behind the decimal point. And what will my fraction be? What do you think the fraction will be? The numerator, 6. What do you think the denominator is going to be? 6 over, if you said 10, you're correct. And so hopefully this video helped you understand that first learning objective. I can represent a decimal in different forms. And those forms are standard form, word form, and fraction.